This video is sponsored by Squarespace, a website building platform that makes it easy to build a website for anyone. The best backpacking hacks usually aren't found in a video like this, but instead down below at the comments section. In this video, I'm sharing some of the best of these tips with you because trust me, some of them will blow your mind. The first tip is that if you're hiking together with your partner and you both have identical sleeping bags, or you're lucky enough that both of your sleeping bags have similar zippers, you can easily create a double sleeping bag just by zipping each side of each sleeping bag together with the other one. So if you're shopping for a new sleeping bag for you or your partner, it might make sense to buy identical sleeping bags because you won't need to buy a separate double sleeping bag if you want to sleep together. I always carry a bit of olive oil to add to my dinners to add some extra calories because when hiking you need extra calories. But never before have I thought of actually spreading it around the pot because supposedly if you do that, the food won't stick as much to the pot and you won't need to scrape it off later. I haven't tried that before, so let's try to do that right now by boiling some rice in the pot. And while we're at it, let's try another hack that instead of bringing salt, pepper and spices, you can bring 1 or 2 bouillon cubes and add it to your dinner to add some flavoring. So let's take a bit of olive oil and spread it all around. I guess the only downside to this is that your hands will look like this. Now let's add a bit of rice, maybe 1/4 of the bouillon cube. Now let's add some water. And now let's cook this bad boy for maybe 10-15 minutes. The rice also seems to be finished, and as you can see, nothing has stuck to the bottom of the pot, which is really good news because it means that this trick actually works. Let's also do a quick taste test. Yeah, it's actually pretty good. It's not the best rice that I've had because it's just bouillon flavoring, but it definitely adds some flavoring, some salt. So yeah, this trick is also a pass from me. Now this tip is for those colder mornings. So the main idea is that when you take down your tent and you're ready to start hiking, before you put on your backpack, you take down your down jacket, then put on the backpack, then again the down jacket, but this time backwards, and then tuck it behind the backpack. After 10 minutes of hiking, when you become hot and you want to take off the down jacket, you won't need to take off your backpack. You can simply put it in the side pocket of your backpack or ask your partner to put it somewhere else in your backpack. But now let's talk about today's sponsor, Squarespace. I've been wanting to create a website for this channel for quite some time now, and I thought that this would be the ideal moment for me to finally try out Squarespace. So the website that I built with Squarespace is called OSCARHIKES.com, and literally everything that you see on this website I built within a single day. When building a new website with Squarespace, you can choose between many different pre-made templates or choose the Blueprint AI to help you customize it a bit more right from the get-go. But they also have a lot of templates for individual pages. So for example, if you want to create an About Us page, all you need to do is select one of the pre-made templates for the About Us page, then write in your own text, add in your own images, and you're pretty much all good to go. But if you're looking for something more custom, like for example, the gear I use section on my website, all you need to do is create a blank page and then drag and drop all the elements that you want on the page. It's also really easy to customize how everything looks on mobile devices. And if something looks a bit off, you can just rearrange it a bit without editing any code. Honestly, I was really impressed by how easy and intuitive everything felt. So I would definitely recommend Squarespace to anyone who is trying to build a website, whether that's a blog, a portfolio, or an online store. So if you want to build a website, go to squarespace.com, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/OSCARHikes to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Thank you Squarespace for sponsoring this video, but now let's get back to the rest of the video. You see, regular sunglasses, they aren't really great for hiking because the temples can break quite easily, and if they're not on your face, they're usually somewhere else, which means that you can lose them fairly easily. So the main hack is to make armless sunglasses because they'll always be around your neck so you won't lose them. And also if you have a pair of old sunglasses laying around with a broken temple, you can make armless sunglasses very easily just by having some cords, a toggle, some dental floss, and a few tools. The first thing that you need to do is unscrew these screws over here that hold the temples in place. So I plan on attaching this to this with some tooth loss, because tooth loss is much stronger than regular thread, and I think it should be strong enough. First of all, I'll make a figure 8 follow through knot to make a loop at the end of the cord. I'll then cut this end off to make it a bit shorter and burn the end a bit. In reality, you can use any type of knot here, but I prefer the figure 8 follow through because I think it looks good and it's pretty strong. I'll now cut a short section of tooth floss, and let's try to carefully loop it through over here. I think I'll go through maybe 2 or 3 times to make it a bit stronger. All right, and I'll tie this off with a few overhand knots. Now let's cut off the ends. And in the end, it looks something like this. Now I need to tie another figure 8 knot at the end of the cord, and using the tooth floss, again attach it to the other end of the sunglasses. I'll again cut off this end over here and burn the end. Now I need to simply find the middle point over here, fold it, and then pass it through this toggle. And in the end, I'll simply tie another overhand knot so that the end doesn't pass through the toggle. All right, looks pretty good to me. Now let's try this on. Here's how they look from all 360 degrees. I still think they look pretty good. And the best part about them is that if I shake my head, they aren't going anywhere. And if I want to take them off, I just undo this toggle and they always stay around my neck. So yeah, I definitely like this tip. And I think I'll definitely keep using these sunglasses. This tip is also mostly for winter hiking. So before you go to sleep, put in all of the clothes that you plan on wearing the next day inside of your sleeping bag. First of all, they'll be warm in the morning, and secondly, you can change into them inside of the sleeping bag, which means that when you get out of the sleeping bag, you're already be dressed and you'll be ready to face the cold morning. I'd also like to add something to this myself, which is something that my wife always does when we're hiking in winter. Roughly 20 minutes before going to sleep, usually when we're eating the dinner, she takes her spare socks and puts them underneath her clothing. So when she's ready to go to sleep, she already has a pair of warm socks, which means that when going to sleep, her feet are warmer, which helps her fall asleep a bit faster. So you know there are these add-ons for canisters. I think they're called Flip Fuel, which allow you to transfer gas from 2 half-full propane canisters into 1. I always thought that it's a nice item to have at home before you set off on your camping trip so that you can refill all of your canisters. But it turns out that they're also super useful for through hiking. So when through hiking, whenever you pass a campsite, you can go to the dumpsters and you'll usually find that a lot of people leave their half-full gas canisters there for other people to use because they don't want to bring them with them. So theoretically, you could refill your own gas canister from these leftovers and you wouldn't need to buy a new one mid-hike. Especially in winters when the days are very short and the evenings are very long, I usually like to watch some Netflix before going to sleep inside of the tent. If you bring a simple rubber band, you can hold your phone to the trekking pole, which allows you to watch Netflix while you're nicely tucked in inside of your own sleeping bag. One addition to this that I like to add myself is that you can use the same rubber band to attach your phone to a water bottle, which allows you to change the location of the phone in case you grow tired of sleeping in one position. Another tip for winter hiking is that if you already know that the temperature will drop below freezing during the night, you should already pre-fill your pot with water, which will allow you to have good coffee or tea first thing in the morning without dealing with frozen water. When taking down your tent, leave one of the tent stakes in the ground in one of the corners. If it's windy outside, it will keep the tent from blowing away, and also it will allow you to keep the tent tensioned as you roll it up. Another tip is to use a hair clip to keep the hood in place by attaching it to your cap. Honestly, this tip isn't very useful for me specifically because whenever I wear a cap underneath my rain jacket, the hood holds down very well, even in very high winds. But from experience, I know that that's not always the case with all rain jackets, so if the hood doesn't hold down very well, you can use a clip to hold it down in place. I won't be attempting this hack myself because I do not have an old down jacket that I can ruin. But if you do, instead of throwing it out, you can cut off the sleeves, then stitch together the end that you cut off, and you'll get a pair of free down booties for winter camping. To make a quick lantern, you can put your headlamp underneath your water bottle. The water will diffuse the light in all directions, and this will give you an overall nicer ambient light to have inside of your tent. In one of my previous videos, I talked about microplastics that you get from drinking water from disposable water bottles. Essentially, a study found out that the vast majority of microplastics from these disposable water bottles come not from squeezing the water bottle because the walls are pretty tough, but instead from screwing and unscrewing the cap, because this produces the most amount of friction, which releases tiny chips of plastic into the water. One thing that I didn't think of before, but someone commented in that video, is that you can use a sports cap to prevent this. And not only will you have fewer microplastics in the water that you're drinking, but it will also be a bit easier to drink from the bottle. And the last tip is something that I took for granted myself, but I realized a lot of people might not know how to do. It's that you should practice how to use paper maps and a compass, not only because it's a good idea to have as a backup in case your phone dies, but also because it improves your terrain recognition skills in general. As a kid, I used to do some orienteering quite a bit, so I'm very familiar with how to navigate using a paper map and a compass. Having good terrain recognition skills, first of all, allows you to find good campsites just by looking at the map, by looking at the contour lines and the tree cover. It also allows you to roughly understand where the trail is heading next just by looking at all of the terrain instead of just simply following a small dot on your screen. And lastly, if you're navigating with your phone and something happens to it, if you've already paid attention to all of the terrain elements and you roughly know where you are on the map, it will be much easier to find your way back. I think this is a very valuable skill to have, so I would recommend everyone to practice doing this at least a bit. So before heading out on your next hike, maybe a shorter one, download a map on Caltopo or a similar website and then try following it with a compass. It will also be pretty fun. As I said previously, the best place to find hiking tips usually is down in the comments section. So if you know of any other unique and cool hiking tips, please write them down below. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in one of my next videos. Bye!